We open chapter 12 on a victory that feels wrong. Hachikuma is down, the threat is neutralized. And yet, before the dust even settles, the story quietly asks a more important question. What if the fight was never the real objective? Because in Shinobi Undercover, protection isn't measured by who you defeat. It's measured by whether the assignment ever leaves your control. And for one critical moment, it does. Yodaka stands over Hachikuma, already shifting forward, already thinking like a protector should. Locate the ally, secure the assignment, re-establish control. But operator number 9 interrupts that flow with something subtle and devastating. Hachikuma never went after Aoi. That single observation reframes the entire fight. Not as a battle that was won, but as proof the operation was never dependent on a single outcome. This is a textbook execution of Kyojitsu, the manipulation of truth and falsehood. The fight Yodaka engages in is real. The danger is real. But its purpose is false. Because it exists to answer one question. Where will the protector commit? Once Yodaka commits to Hachikuma, the system creates a blind spot. And in that blind spot, the real objective is targeted. This is not a failure of strength. It's a failure of information prioritization under pressure. And that distinction is what separates combat skill from operational awareness. Umineko doesn't fight. He moves. He blends into civilians, uses evacuation flow as cover, and relies on positioning rather than confrontation. This is high-level shinobi logistics, survival through invisibility. And for a moment, it works. He creates distance, reduces exposure, positions for handoff, and then he makes a mistake so small it almost feels invisible. He relaxes. When Umineko thinks Yodaka is amazing, that's not just admiration, that's a shift in state. In classical martial arts philosophy, this is the collapse of Zanshin, sustained awareness. Zanshin doesn't end when the immediate threat fades. It ends when all variables are secured. Umineko assumes the critical phase has passed, but in reality, he's standing at the exact moment the real attack begins. Miyake doesn't create the opening, he arrives at the moment it appears. Miyake doesn't overpower Umineko. He reads him, identifies the compromised variable, his leg, and exploits it immediately. Because Umineko's entire role depends on mobility. Once that's gone, so is control. Aoi slips, and just like that, the assignment leaves their protection. Yodaka sees it happen. I'll go faster. No hesitation, no analysis. Just action. Close the gap. Correct the failure. Reassert control. But he's still reacting to the wrong layer. Yodaka represents reactive protection. Identify the threat. Engage, neutralize, move forward. But operator number 9 is running something far more complex. A layered defense system. Which means Yodaka isn't the only safeguard. He's just the most visible one. So when Aoi is taken, the system doesn't collapse. It shifts, because another layer is already in motion. This layered structure mirrors what we see in World Trigger, where operators don't just react, they pre-position outcomes, so even unexpected variables fall into controlled scenarios. Miyake succeeds. That matters. The plan works. He has the target, and then the environment changes, not through speed, not through force, but through presence. A man steps into his path, calm, unhurried, certain, and immediately, Miyake understands something is wrong. Mimizuku is not just an owl, he is a horned owl, and that distinction defines everything about this encounter. Horned owls represent apex predation, territorial dominance, silent execution, precision through forward-facing vision. They do not chase, they control space. So what Miyake senses in this moment isn't just danger, it's hierarchy. He hasn't encountered another fighter. He's entered the domain of something above him. And more importantly, Mimizuku doesn't react to Miyake. He defines the conditions Miyake is allowed to exist within. Mimizuku draws his blades, moves, applies pressure, but never escalates. This isn't a fight, it's a restriction. Every movement reduces Miyake's options, until there's only one left. Retreat. This is sen, no sen. Control before action. Mimizuku doesn't wait. He positions, so that any move Miyake makes becomes a mistake. That's why Miyake doesn't lose. He withdraws, because the outcome is already decided. Once Aoi is secured, Mimizuku doesn't pursue, doesn't retaliate, doesn't escalate. He protects completely. In covert doctrine, secure the objective, maintain control, minimize exposure. Eliminating enemies is optional. Securing the mission is not. Mimizuku understands this perfectly, which is why, from his perspective, the mission never failed. The car ride is quiet, and for Yodaka, unbearable. No enemies, no directives, no structure, just presence. And he struggles, because without a defined role, he doesn't know how to exist in the moment. Yodaka does not fit into normal life. He is socially misaligned, internally reactive, uncomfortable in stillness, dependent on clear structure. But more importantly, he does not adjust himself to others. He operates exactly as he is, blunt, direct, unfiltered, and that's where his value comes from. The previous operator removed all risk, and in doing so, removed everything else. Aoi was safe, but alone. Absolute safety creates isolation, stagnation, disconnection. The system protected her body, but abandoned her life. Operator number 9 introduces risk, movement, exposure, and Yodaka. Yodaka doesn't connect to people because he's skilled socially. He connects because he doesn't pretend to be anything else. He is honest to a fault, single-minded, unable to split focus. When he commits to something, he is completely reliable. And that authenticity is what resonates with Aoi. Not because it's smooth, but because it's real. He doesn't create connection. He allows it. This is the opposite of everything Yodaka is trained for. He cannot act independently, cannot control the situation, cannot rely on instinct alone. He has to adapt. Earlier, control meant isolating variables. Here, control is impossible. So the only path forward is synchronization, match pace, adjust timing, trust movement, not because it's natural, but because it's required. They win. But that's not the point. I had fun. Yodaka says it hesitantly, like it doesn't fully belong to him, and that's exactly why it matters. Yodaka didn't enjoy this because he fits. He enjoyed it, despite not fitting. That's not transformation, that's expansion, a small shift in what he can accept. And in this story, that's enough to change everything. From a distance, Mimizuku watches. The past, Aoi alone. The present, Aoi connected. And beside her, the variable that made it possible. A great secret weapon. Not because Yodaka is perfect, not because he fits, but because he changes the outcome. Indeed. Chapter 12 doesn't just introduce Mimizuku. It introduces a new standard. A system that guarantees safety, at the cost of life, and a system that risks everything to preserve it. And standing between those two philosophies is Yodaka, not as a perfect protector, but as a variable no system can fully control. So the real question moving forward becomes, what happens when that variable is pushed too far? And more importantly, what happens when someone like Mimizuku decides that risk is no longer acceptable? If you're following Shinobi Undercover, make sure you're subscribed. Because the next chapter doesn't just build on this tension. It starts testing whether this system can survive it.